Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Telemancer Review. It's Monday, the 19th of May, and my clock says 11:43 p.m., which is my time, which I think it's Mountain. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Mountain. And I'm just living my life up here. Got a young visitor, a friend of my son's came over for about, I think he'll probably all in be here about a month, 3 weeks a month. Nice young man from Portland. Very interesting to hear the stories about Portland. Man, hard to understand. Well, what I have to report to you tonight, those of you who've been listening to me for a while, 3 months or longer, and I don't know why this is happening, but there's a massive spike in subscribers on the Telemancer Review. I'm not sure if it carries over to YouTube or it's mainly just Substack. I think Substack. Let me just check my YouTube channel here. YouTube's about the same, but Substack has jumped massively. Substack I've gained 111 subscribers in the last 30 days, which brings me to, I think, about 296 on Substack. So, about 35% of them in the last 30 days. Now, the most commented and restacked podcast I have right now, and liked podcast I have right now, is The Ironic Mirror. Man, I wish somebody would tell me which podcasts are the ones that are going to go boom. I never know. I just show up here every night and I talk after spending my day speaking Spanish with my campesino neighbors. And sometimes I have a very defined topic about what I'm going to talk about. And other times I just show up and I just sort of do what I would call a spontaneous narration. Now, in deference to the untold number, listen to me being dramatic, untold number. I just told you the number. It's 111. Is it? That's a weird number too, 111, right? So 111, hang on a sec. Substack. I think it's 111, yeah. That's what I just read. I don't think my memory's so bad I would forget a 3-digit number. Yeah, 111 new subscribers over the last 30 days, and I'm up to 267 subscribers on Substack. So that's actually closer to 40% increase. And let me just get you some of the stats here. So it is, in fact, yeah, so The Ironic Mirror, I don't know what it is about that podcast, but it's got 528 views. And, it's, I think it's circulating amongst a group of people that may find it offensive, but the vast majority of the comments have been very positive and very supportive. And anybody who goes back and looks through my catalog of podcasts, and if you want to be really thorough, read the books I've written since 2019. Stardust Ranch, The Incredible True Story, John Edmonds and Bruce McDonald. The Light of Darkness, A Warrior's Tale for Our Time, Robert Wiegand and Bruce McDonald. And my last book, published December 5th, 2023, The Devil and Us, A Memoir of You and Me, just written by me, Bruce McDonald, with some support behind the scenes because of the material. Yeah, so by far the Ironic Mirror is the most watched video, and I'm trying to figure out why that is. And maybe I'm not supposed to know. I don't know. There were some, as I said on an earlier podcast, there were some rather enraged comments, you know. Yeah, you're nothing but a racist in a t-shirt. I think I'm the opposite of a racist. I think the whole point of the Ironic Mirror and what I say about this culture is in defense of the human race. And if you take the time to read The Devil in Us, you'll understand my position very clearly. There's so many knee-jerk positions people have, you know. So if you say something against the Jews, you're a Nazi. Well, let me be clear about this. I find master race and chosen people equally odious. And I wrote at great length in The Devil in Us about the similarities between Nazis and Zionists. It's basically the same mentality in two ethnic groups. They're both homogeneous. They both think they're better than everybody. And they both think they have the right to cull or depopulate the world or to genocide populations. So if you're a Jewish person who's going to call me a Nazi, why don't you just say, hey, Bruce, come on in. We're kind of like them. You want to be a Zionist? We're like 99% what the Nazis were. And that's the simple truth about it. You can rationalize it all you want. You can tell yourself fairy tales. You can fold back into the programming of your mothers, your grandmothers, and your rabbis. But realize to the vast majority of the human race, you're not looking too good right now. Okay? And let's be honest, your religion is kind of fucking wacky. Okay? Now, a lot of the misunderstanding around the Ironic Mirror pivoted off of the term Holocaust. And so I posted a written post today about the etymology and the use of the word Holocaust. Now, when you get into my work, it's very much about how consciousness works. Now, consciousness functions the same way for everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it. The operative principles of a human consciousness are the same. Okay? We are manifesting. Our thoughts, our attitudes, our feelings form a certain strata or texture within our life, our timeline. And that unfolds in context to a number of largely preordained events that were chosen before you came into the body. And this creates an atmosphere where, if you can figure it out, which is, I think, largely done by getting yourself more centered and more in the immediacy of the moment and flushing a lot of your programming out, which I don't think can be done in any way other than rigorous internal work, you know? And my internal work, for the most part, is silent meditation, generally sitting cross-legged. I used to do a lot of mantra. Like for the first 20 years, I used to sing mantra quite a bit. Mantra is very powerful. But because I'm so habituated to meditating now after 41 years, I can just sit for 5 or 7 minutes and go into a meditative state. which is different than waking, different than sleep. It's a unique space of consciousness that is fully remembered and experienced. And I'll say no more about it because I don't want to proselytize about it too much. And there's other ways of doing it. There's all kinds. I think every religion has produced people who've achieved transcendent consciousness. Pretty much every religion on the planet, except maybe like Voodoo and Santeria, Palo Mayombe, and the various forms of dark magic. They produce a highly efficient chemical consciousness, a chemical practitioner. Okay, now I've explained all these things. If you're new to this podcast, it might take a while to catch on to what's going on here. And I apologize for that, but you've been dropped into the ocean. You know, you haven't waded into the water from the beach. You've just been thrown off a ship and you're in the deep end. And if you don't understand something, please ask politely. Okay? I'm a very approachable guy. This is still what I would call a boutique podcast, meaning that it's small enough that I can personally interact with a lot of my listeners, and I do. A lot of my readers, and I do. On a daily basis. But I will be the first to admit that it's getting difficult, even with 304 subscribers on YouTube and some 267 on Substack. That's only 567 people subscribed. I realize it doesn't represent the listenership because a lot of people will listen without subscribing. But I mean, I could literally spend every day talking to people now. And some days it goes 4 hours. You know, someone will call, they need to talk for 30 minutes. I like helping people. I like listening to people. I like being of service to people. All people. So I enjoy talking to my listeners. I have certain consistencies I've seen or certain groups of people I've seen clustered in my podcast. I think that there's a lot of addicts. I don't know why that is, but I've had a number of people reach out to me and say that I've been instrumental in helping them get sober and stay sober. And it's not like I'm doing a 12-step podcast, but maybe it's some kind of scared straight thing or something because of the thing I talk about, you know. So it's interesting. Very interesting. So I thought, in deference to all of the new listeners, that I would do a reintroduction show tonight and just try to address a lot of these new listeners. So, hey, my name is Bruce MacDonald. I was born in the nation's capital of Canada, 1966. That's Ottawa, by the way, if you don't know Canadian geography. I think one of the coldest, if not the coldest, capital in the world. Right? Moscow might be close, and I think Reykjavik in Iceland is, but I think Ottawa's in the top 5 coldest capitals in the world. Frigid place to grow up, man. You could go with wind chill. You could many winters in the 70s and early 80s. You could get down to like minus 50, minus 52. It's an incredible growing up experience in Ottawa. My father was an economist with the Canadian government, an alcoholic who joined AA when I was born. And if you get around to reading The Devil in Us, a profoundly bothered person, spiritually bothered, and very often possessed. My mother was a Carmelite nun before she got married, and then a psychiatric counselor at a mental hospital in Ottawa. And her father, my grandfather, committed suicide when I was 3 years old. after not speaking for 3 years. This is all in The Devil in Us. It's my life story. In some measure, it's me and you. It's like the 20th century and told through 4 generations of my family, but not really. You got to read it. It's hard to describe. All my books are kind of hard to describe. Well, some are easy. Stardust Ranch is about an alien ranch in Arizona on that 33rd parallel, like Bradshaw and Skinwalker. I left home very young. I've been a lifelong meditator. I haven't lived what you'd call a saintly life, but I have been very consistent in my practice. In my late 40s, I devised a plan to leave Canada, having an intuition about the future of North America, and observing things that were going on in Canada and the United States that I could see setting up a future that we were going to be going into. And I would say, if you're still living there, you're in that future now. And I just made my mind up to get out. And I moved to Costa Rica, which I knew about because I had visited it in 2001. I had an acquaintance who had moved down here. It was a gentleman I knew from Toronto, Canada. Older fellow. I think he's about 25 years older than me. He's in his early 80s now. And I fell in love with Costa Rica, and then I came back in 2012 for 6 months. And I decided then that I was going to live here one day, and then I went back in 2014, late 2014. I think October 2014, I kind of made the move over here. And I work remotely, and I work in technology. And after a couple years of living in various places in Costa Rica, I made up my mind to excuse me, come to a very, very rural and remote place in the southernmost province of Costa Rica called Limon, which is lemon in Spanish. And I found a little piece of property, a couple hectares, which for you Americans is 2.6 acres, is 1 hectare. So I have about 5.2 acres. And I built a homestead here, and I employed a new old form of organic architecture built on Adobe, but it's earth bag building with rebar and barbed wire, and it turned out really well. I live in what I would call a hillbilly condo here now, and it's very comfortable. People who come here don't want to leave. It's a very special place. It has an incredible healing energy. There's a dream space here that's unbelievable. Like everybody, and I mean everybody, reports the same thing when they come up here and stay for a few weeks. You dream and you dream and you dream. You dream like you dreamed when you were 5 years old. And it just never stops. There's, I could do the rest of the podcast speculating on why that is. I've come to believe that we're supposed to dream that much. We're supposed to have that much interaction with our unconscious through the dream state. It's a normal human thing. And I think when you get into larger cities and first world environments, there's a kind of, I don't know how to say it, like a synthetic ether there that blocks dream time. Okay, and it has to do with all the electromagnetism and just the general way people live, which looking at it from 10 years of living in the rainforest, it just is what it is. It's a way of life. It's a big machine. So I went about 7.5 kilometers up a dirt road, and my neighbors are campesinos, which is Spanish for peasant. And I live with a native tribe about 5 kilometers further into the jungle. And they are what I would call for real natives, meaning they're very authentic in maintaining their own way of life. They don't have electricity on the reserve. There's no roads. Everything they do is by walking. And they seem to like it that way. I mean, even to go visit them, it's a whole day, man. It's like 2 hours of walking to get to the reserve. And walking in the mountains in the rainforest is pretty brutal. I mean, it's worse than jogging. It'll keep you in shape. I don't do as much of it as I used to. I should get back into more regular walking, but I'm so busy at my desk most days. So I came here, and I had been a writer in Canada. Oh, and I got a journalism degree from what used to be called Ryerson University in Toronto. I believe it's now been rebranded to Metropolitan University. Apparently there was something racist about Egerton Ryerson, the man who the university was named after. It was a very good journalism program. So I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a writer, and I've stuck at that my whole life. Now, originally I wanted to be a literary writer. I didn't want to be a journalist per se. I think I got one of the reasons I was enamored with a journalism degree was Ernest Hemingway said, well, if you study journalism, at least they'll teach you to write a declarative sentence. And I don't think anything good can come out of studying English literature if you want to be a writer. I think it's better that you just learn how to write properly, learn grammar, learn how to express yourself, be enamored with the writers and the poets that you love, and try to find your own voice and pitch a story. So I had some success in Canada. I published one novel. It got optioned for film. I worked on a screenplay for a year, and the crazy Quebec director and the crazy Quebec producer got into a huge fight, and the project blew up. It was a shit show. And so yeah, I came over here, and it took me a while to find a bit of good work, and then it took me a while to find my way back to writing. And when I did, it was a kind of writing I never imagined I would ever do in my life. I used to laugh at people who wrote books like this. Fucking UFO book, are you kidding me? And nonetheless, there's podcasts that explain how I did the first book, Stardust Ranch. And I don't know why, but each of these books has been a sort of a combination of everything that I am. Okay, and what do I mean by that? Well, they're a combination of the literary being that I cultivated through my love of literature, the journalist that in me that got a degree in journalism, and the contemplative that's been meditating for 40 years. Those three things mixed and created what I might call a unique form of storytelling. And if the only way to really experience that is to read one of the books. And they're very affecting. And I decided to do a kind of, I don't know how I would say, like a kind of what's really going on in the world journalism. Like, what is really going on? All these crazy conspiracy theories floating around. Very, very bad things happening, that nobody feels are really what we're being told they are. I would say it begins around 2001 with 9/11. And we entered into this sort of very, to me anyways, as I try to explain in the books, a very deliberately chiseled event line that I think is ultimately leading to a massive depopulation of the human race, which is entirely intentional. And so my books focus on various aspects of this. So Stardust Ranch is about the UFO phenomenon. And all immodesty aside, it is about the most comprehensive book on what UFOs are and what's going on in this movement you're ever going to read. And I could say I don't really approach them in a research fashion per se. They kind of happen more in a literary fashion, and the book comes to me. It's a very interesting process, and I say interesting because it's nonfiction, and nonfiction is usually done by research. But what I like to do is I like to pick an interesting person who is very well experienced in something. And John Edmonds was very well experienced in the UFO movement. And he formed the basis of the book we wrote together, Stardust Ranch, The Incredible True Story. And each of the books I've written, and, I just recently, a little while ago, did a two-part podcast called Big Trouble in Little Limon, in which I document all of the abnormal things, abnormal to a normal, what we define as reality, all of the abnormal things that happened to me working on these books, and they're quite fascinating. And it began with Stardust Ranch, and then many people have reached out to me from all over the world. It's not like I've heard. Yeah, I have heard from Africa as well. I don't think I've heard from anybody from the Middle East, but, Europe and not Asia. Europe, Africa, North America, Australia. People reach out to me, it's a very interesting experience. I'm fairly accessible. It's not like I'm, inaccessible. You can find my email, you can find my contact information online, and people reach out to me. By the way, I do the same thing with writers I like. So when I was working on The Light of Darkness, I had a very interesting repertoire with William Bramley, who wrote The Gods of Eden. And we stayed in contact for about 4 months, exchanging emails. A very interesting fellow, very lovely man. I think he's a bit stunned by the effect his book has had. He strikes me almost like a Greek oracle, not quite understanding what came through himself, which is often the case with we writers. You think, oh, the writer, he wrote the book. But very often the writer, it's a very interesting process. So people reach out to me, and a lot of the readers have very interesting experiences reading the books. At a low level, it would be not abnormal, but, very defined dream experiences is what I hear a lot. And then there's other people who have full-on paranormal experiences reading the books. There is a very powerful charge in each of the books. And quite frankly, the podcast is fairly well charged as well. It's clean, it's direct. I tell you what I mean, I tell you what I'm saying, and I say it directly. Light of Darkness is a very powerful book. It's depossessed a number of people. Just the book. No Roman Rite, no priest, no Max von Sydow, nothing. Just the book has depossessed people. And The Devil in Us is another book that really affects people very, very strongly. And each of the books have carried very unique experiences for me. And there's a little danger in doing them. And I'm not trying to be dramatic or sound like James Bond or make my life sound any more adventurous than it is. I'm just a regular guy. Married, big family here. I don't have children with my wife, but My Canadian son, helped me build this place. And yeah, I just live a pretty regular life. That'll come home pretty quickly. Watch Family. What are you going to do? That about sums up the regularness of my life. But throughout it all, I've been writing these books, and me and my wife have gone on this real wild trip. And every book has had severe injury and death associated with it, and abnormal death, okay? Sudden death, freaky death. And it has to do with what I'm writing about, okay? And something is putting up some resistance to it. There are very powerful not channeled, but energetic oppositions to these books. And I know why after they go out and I hear people talking back to me about them and how they've affected them. It's very powerful, very interesting. Like I said, it's a combination of the three parts of myself going into the books: the literary and poetic aspect of me, the journalist, and the contemplative. All those three things merging, okay? So I do highly recommend the books. And there was a fourth book I wrote with a fellow, but I don't often reference it. We had a rather, I don't know what you'd call it. We don't speak anymore. I turned out to be a rather dastardly fellow, as many of these people in the New Age movement are. I'm not affiliated with any religion. I've studied most religions and can speak about them better than the people who practice those religions, with the exception of Judaism, because Judaism is a largely hermetic religion, meaning that the inner chapters of that religion are not publicly available. It's the most hermetic religion on the planet. But I would consider myself something of an expert in Taoism, Sikhism. I've read the Japji, most of the lectures of Guru Nanak, most of the sutras of the Buddha I've read. And this is over 35, 40 years, right? I mean, I read scripture like other people read Stephen King or science fiction. And I have no rational explanation for this. I've just been this way since I was about 17, 18 years old. You ever want to get me a gift, get me some rare book from Shambhala Press. You know, some manuscript written by a Rinpoche in the 17th century. I'll love you forever. So I've been studying religions all my life. Part of it was because I don't want to say I was studying them in a religious sense. I mean, I've always had a lot of experiences in my meditative life, and I wanted to spend time with other deep contemplatives, but, you know, masters of various traditions who had written books and documented what they went through. And another part of me was reading the books in a kind of Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell way, where I was trying to understand a kind of meta-mythology, which I consider religion to be a meta-mythology, you know, so precise in its expression that the literal and the metaphorical fuse into one thing. It's a very special kind of writing and transmission of spirit. I was going to say thought and energy, but really good scripture can transfer spirit to you. So yeah, I mean, that's about basically who I am, and I want to say hello to the, 111 new subscribers. And I guess for the rest of the show, now that the introduction is over the way, okay. Now there's an elephant in the room I have to talk about. Okay, I very often do talk about the Jewish religion, and I don't want to get called an anti-Semite or a racist, because I'm not. And the reason I do is I see it as the religion with the most social and political influence in the world right now. It's not like Buddhists are running the world. It's not like Sikhs from Punjab province are running the world. And Christians don't seem to be running the world. Muslims don't seem to be running the world. I mean, I don't see any Muslims in the institutions that are really governing the world, or the secret societies that are governing it. I see largely people influenced by the rather hermetic texts of the Jewish faith, which are amalgamations of pre-existing religions. Judaism is really a kind of a multicultural religion amalgamated from antecedent religions and magical systems and spiritual paths. And that's true across the board, okay? And again, I'm not saying that to be offensive. If you're Jewish and you do your own research and you're honest and open about it and you go where the research takes you, you'll find the same thing. Same thing with Christianity. It's kind of a farce of a religion. Very Jewish now. I would say that the Sanhedrin and the Cardinal of Colleges are one entity now. Okay? So, but this is a relatively new thing, probably beginning. The process of amalgamating the two things commenced after World War II in a what do you call those formal documents after a war treaty, and or suing for peace, because the Vatican was involved in World War II and it was a deep supporter of the Nazis. Sorry, Catholics. Study your history. It's the truth, okay? Yeah, I don't really play any favorites. And I think the reason I talk about Judaism so much is because of all the power it has. It seems to be, Christians are so disregarded by Western leaders now, they almost seem expendable. And Jews are so defended, one might even, if they were simple-minded, come to the conclusion that these might in fact be God's chosen people. If in fact Jews worshipped anything even approximating what I would call God. So it's pretty much in everybody's face now. And it's inescapable. And so being a journalist and being contemplative and somebody who studies religions, I feel very well suited to talk about this topic. And the ironic Holocaust was about the words. Why be so specific in the utility of that word, Holocaust? I would suggest because there's a magical reason for it. They want the consciousness of Holocaust in the ether space. They want to create a kind of tulip or an egregor, which is a kind of astral climate or pre-climate situation. And then when they want it to rain, they just seed the astral clouds and it rains down onto the physical world in terms of a malignant circumstance that seems very much like a Holocaust. And that's one of the ways that magic works. And this particular magical working has been going on since the end of World War II. And it's predicated on something that I find dubious to begin with, which is that 6 million Jews were killed and incinerated. It seems quite impossible to me, and I agree with the work of David Irving and other historians who've taken a look at it. And I'm not saying this to be hurtful. I'm not saying this from the perspective of a Christian. I'm not saying this from the perspective of culturally embedded antipathy due to a religious difference, like Christians and Jews or Muslims and Jews or anything like that. I'm saying it as an objective observer, both as a social and historical observer in terms of plausibility and the reality of the Nazis being able to perpetrate this genocide, right to, okay. I don't like to get into too many specifics because, hey, Bruce is a Holocaust denier, but I guess I am, if I'm being honest with myself. First of all, If you were to sit down and do the calculations on the amount of fuel it would take to burn 6 million bodies, it takes about 24 hours. Back then, it took about 24 hours to incinerate one body. Okay, that's a lot of fuel. Whatever you're using, whatever combustible you're using, that fuel would have been needed in the war effort. There's no way they would have put away so much fuel to incinerate 6 million bodies. And incineration is very convenient because forensic anthropologists cannot figure out whether the claim is true 30, 40, 50 years later. And the Holocaust doesn't really come into the public consciousness until the early 70s. So you've got this 25-year period from 45 to like the early 70s, let's say 1970, where nobody's talking about 6 million Jews killed in the war. And then all of a sudden, it just picks up steam and steam and steam and steam. And we're now in 2025, and you can't go a fiscal year without 2 to 6 movies or TV shows about the Nazis and a Holocaust. And I ask myself, as a rational and reasonable person, why is that? And why is that, especially in context of the comparison I made earlier in this podcast about Nazis and Zionists, which seem like the same entity to me? So if the Nazis are as evil as we're being told they are, why can't we make the same claim about the Zionists? Because they're just as evil. They're ethnically cleansing a people now and trying to maximize the suffering of those people. We're basically, and because it's the 21st century and we live in the age of social media, Israel is publishing what might be one of the first snuff films of the 21st century. And you're not allowed to talk about it. Why? It's disgusting. Is it not one of the commandments that will persist even into Noahide law? If the prophecies come true, and the Jews come to rule the world from Jerusalem and the rebuilt temple, and we're all living under Noahide law, am I not supposed to live by the 10 commandments? Is not one of the commandments, thou shalt not bear false witness? Am I bearing false witness? You tell me. It's like that True Romance scene about the Moors conquering Italy, Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper. Now you tell me, am I lying? Okay? So it's not that I want to get pegged as a hate monger, because I'm not a hate monger. I think most people trapped in these Abrahamic religions are just that, trapped in a kind of epigenetic psychological straitjacket. And it's no different for Catholics or Muslims. These are not liberation theologies. This is not liberation spirituality. This is not enlightenment spirituality, this religious system. I don't think Abraham was a friend of the human race. That's how deeply I feel about this. It's not just one group. And as I said, I talk about the Jews because they seem, to any rational and objective observer, to me the most socially, politically, and economically influential religion on the planet now. Okay? So there you go. That's why I do what I do. Okay? Now, getting to the last part of the ironic mirror, we're in a kind of a Holocaust now. We're in a depopulation event. The vaccine and the pandemic were the commencement or the kickoff of a massive depopulation event. Okay? And these indiscriminate wars, which are completely illogical, like Ukraine and Russia, people need to see it for what it is. That's not a war. Ukraine is being deliberately depopulated. There's no people left there. Okay? If you want my opinion, when you look at what happens in a war, the final state or end result of the war was the intent from the beginning. The Ukraine hasn't been depopulated as a consequence of its desire to defend its borders. The Ukraine has been depopulated because through the pretense and cloak of war, that was the original intent. Somebody else wants that land. Follow the business contracts that are being written. This isn't rocket science. Okay? Stop watching the mainstream news. Yeah. And I think a lot of people just get to a point where they're so scared they can't even admit the truth to themselves anymore. And I'll be the first to admit it is kind of scary what's going on in the world now. Okay? And if I'm right and we're in a Holocaust now, the people that are going to be rounded up are going to be the opposite of the people that were allegedly rounded up in World War II. It will be the people who criticize those people who will be rounded up. And this will be the stepping stones toward Noahide law. Now, if you want to know at a theological and spiritual or magical level why I think these things are happening, and you're one of these new listeners I'm addressing, take the time to read there's long essays associated with each podcast as well. But take the time to listen to the 5-part series I did called The Womb Inseminated by Solomon. And that's what I think is going on in the world. I think that's about enough for tonight. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review, and welcome to all the new listeners. I just wanted to set the record straight about what this podcast is about, okay? And if I see any vicious trolling going on in the comments, I'm just going to ban you. They give you that power on Substack. I can ban you from my digital kingdom, and I'll do it. If you ask an intelligent question, even if it's completely contradicting some of the things I'm saying in my podcast, if it's asked respectfully, I'll definitely engage you, okay? This is a boutique podcast. I'm not sitting behind 1 million subscribers here with 10 assistants answering emails in my name. Peace out, folks. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.